Alright. Still summer, I'm indoors, but my hair's not looking good on camera, so that's why I've got the beanie. Shout out to my buddy Chris at Beautiful Skateboards. I'll put a link in the description, check him out. But actually, speaking of Chris, he is very relevant to the story because this is about my first gig as a solo artist. Now, to be clear, I played live shows before, but this was my first time playing by myself as this artist, you know, Quincy Kane, my original songs on stage by myself playing with a backing track. So how did my first show go? I'm going to share with you some of the things I learned. You know, it was a very good first show, not because everything went perfect, but because there was a lot to learn from it, and it went good enough. So, alright, let's check that out. So for those of you who don't know, I actually do enjoy skateboarding, and I go to my local skate park every Saturday. And I was talking with my buddy Chris and kind of saying how I thought it'd be cool to somehow combine and collaborate my music with the skate community. And he got me hooked up with this guy who runs an event called Skate Nelson. This is in Nelson County, near where I live. There's a skate park there, and of course they have skating, but they also have live music at the event. We got in touch, I talked, he checked out my music, thought it was cool, and so I was on for the booking. And actually this was happening back kind of around the first COVID outbreak, so I was supposed to play sometime last year, but the event was canceled because of all the COVID stuff going on. But that was kind of a blessing in disguise because I realized, whoa, I might be ready performance-wise, but there was a lot of things I needed to set up. You know, I just needed to be ready to present myself as an artist, having sort of my own logo, having a setup for a merch table. Even though I wasn't going to have much merch, I still want kind of a home base at the event so that people can see me after the show and somehow get in touch with me, have like an email list they can sign up for, a tip jar, that kind of stuff. So there were a lot of little preparations that needed to be made. Not to mention, I just needed to see if I could even perform live by myself with backing tracks. Now, if you've seen me on YouTube performing live, that's basically the same setup that I use, and that was the first thing I had to figure out was, will this setup translate to a live setting? And for the most part it did. Just from some testing and from some helpful feedback, I was able to kind of tweak it and get it to where it's like, all right, sweet, I can play with backing tracks on stage and perform. And so I started really practicing for this show. So the day of the show comes, you know, I'm doing everything I can to warm up my voice and just be ready for it, and I'm getting set up. Now, thankfully, you know, I purchased pretty much all the gear that I needed. There were a few things that I was kind of hoping they had, but at the same time, I pretty much had everything on my end, so if they didn't have something, I should be covered. And I'm looking down, looking down because I've got all my stuff right there. But yeah, I got there for the day of the show, got everything set up. I was pretty much good to go. And I was going to be the first person performing. Basically, I got on stage, I had a table set up, and I put my laptop on that. That's where my backing tracks are going to come from. I've got an interface plugged into my laptop. That's what my guitar is plugged into. I have a couple other pieces of gear, and basically all that, I just have to plug it into an outlet to power it. I've got my own mic stand, my own microphone, my guitar, and all I have to do is just hit play on the laptop, and it'll play the backing track, and that's pretty much all there is to it. You know, it's a fairly simple setup. So I got all that in place. The sound man helped me out, kind of tested things out, did a little sound check, and it was all sounding good to go. So it was coming to showtime, and the guy who's running the whole event, he was making some announcements on the stage, and I'm kind of just standing there getting ready. It's almost showtime, and I've got this little loop in my guitar cable, and I'm like, let me get that undone. So as I'm trying to get that undone, I pulled all of my gear off of the table. Thankfully not the laptop, but everything else, just it came off the table, and oh my gosh. So I had to scramble to pick that up. I'm like, buy me some time, you know, getting all that set in place, and everything looked okay. He announced me, and I went to speak into the mic, and no sound, nothing came out. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this can't be happening, you know? And I was really trying to come out like nice and confident, you know, I wanted to put on a good show, and this was not helping. So I'm scrambling to kind of figure things out, messing with things. The sound guy's trying to help me out. And we get some sound, and it seems like everything's good to go, but there was a little problem. So even though I was going out mono, the way I have things panned, my guitar is panned all the way to the right, the backing track guitar is panned all the way to the left. So I'm playing the first song, and it's going all right, you know, everything's fine. But there's a section of the song where I stop playing, and you can hear the other guitar playing, but the other guitar wasn't coming through. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, we're only getting the right side of the track, we're not getting the full mix. I just had to kind of make it through that song as best I could, and when that song finished, I explained to the guy, I was like, hey, things aren't still working, and I think the quick solution to that was I just panned everything to the right or something like that. I think I turned my output into a mono also. I think that was the thing. I just went mono for mine and sent it all out, so even if the left wasn't coming through, it kind of combines it all together, so you're getting it all through just the right output. So that was kind of like the quick fix, and we got the volume adjusted, and it worked out. Now, it kind of stunk because we had things sort of set up where it felt good for me, and I think making those tweaks, it wasn't quite the same mix in my monitoring, so I wasn't able to play quite as comfortably as I was hoping, but we got it fixed enough in time. So I was just kind of, honest. I tried to stay as relaxed as I could, talking into the mic, and just try to be conversational and just kind of try to make light of all the little mishaps that were happening. So it came time for the second song. Now here's the thing. So I've been practicing these songs. I have sang them several times in live streams. I knew I could sing this song. This was a challenging one. The song's called A Place to Call Home, and it's got this high note in it. And but I've been practicing, and it's like I knew I could hit it. I knew I'd be fine, and I was doing everything I could, but all of a sudden I was like losing my voice, and I was kind of hitting those high notes, but they were coming out screechy. So it's one thing if like you just strain for them. It's one thing if you're like, you told me, and it just doesn't work. That's one thing. But it was like a like screech, and it's like, oh my gosh, that never happens. And so I'm like, what is going on? And what stinks is when I went back to the lower notes, it wasn't like my voice went back to normal. I was still like, it was like I was trying to sing with a cold or something, like my voice was just so rough and messed up. Now, thankfully, the singing ended and a guitar solo was coming, so my voice was able to rest. Got through the solo and went to sing again, and my voice came back, but again, that high note sort of messed it up. And so I had to tweak the melody. So rather than just singing the song the way it is, I kind of had to hit lower notes, and I was able to sort of restore my voice. So I gotta be honest, I have no clue what the heck happened. I think talking to someone later, they mentioned that maybe singing outdoors had something to do with it, which is kind of weird, but maybe the weather, just the humidity or something. It was a really hot day, that's for sure. But maybe something about that was interfering with my vocals. And even, I made a mistake. I knew to drink like room temperature water, but I think right before I went on, someone was friendly and handed me like a nice cold bottle of water, and I drank that, and I probably shouldn't have done that before my show. I probably should have just stuck with the water I had brought with me. I don't really know what happened, but I do think it was something with like the weather, so that's another lesson learned. Just be mindful if you're playing for an outdoor event. You might train singing outside some, and just try to stay hydrated, but drink like room temperature water, try not to, maybe even drink warm water. That might be better than cold water. And if that does happen, if you're singing those high notes and those screeches are coming, kind of what I found worked was, again, just to modify the melody, just ditch the high notes, just sing something lower. And when you stop singing, you can sort of take a moment to kind of like swallow and kind of clear your throat a little bit and get your voice back. So it's not like a permanent thing for the rest of the set, but while you're singing, you're not going to be able to get your normal voice back. So yeah, that was kind of scary, especially happening on just the second song. I was like, I still got a whole set to go through. This can't be happening. So things were starting off pretty rocky, and I knew I had to go through it, but I was definitely a little concerned. But again, trying to just be lighthearted about everything and make the best of it. But as the song continued, things kind of smoothed out. I think the next few songs went a lot better. I played pretty well. Now, one thing that was pretty challenging, again, it was super hot. Later in my set, I was just drenched in sweat, and so some of those guitar solos were really tricky to play. I think I got through all right. I think there was only one solo that I maybe overthought it a little bit and bombed it, but all my other solos went pretty good. Now, because this was a skate event, one of the things I wanted to do was to shout out, do a kickflip, and see someone do a kickflip, but I wasn't sure what the layout of the event was going to be. And sure enough, the stage was sort of facing this kind of grassy area, and the park was more so off to the side. So I didn't have like a clear view of the skaters, but I knew like, the audience could see them and maybe someone could come closer, more in view. And so I kind of took a chance on it, and I sort of said this was what I was going to do. It might not work, but here we go. And I shouted out, hey, skaters, do a kickflip. And thankfully, some cool kid, came over into view, and he's like, I gotcha. And he did his first kickflip, messed up. Everyone's like, oh no, you got that. Did the second one, and everyone cheered. So that was kind of a nice little moment. And props to that guy. I dedicated the song to him. I was like, thanks. This song goes out to you and all the kickflippers out there. This one's called blah, 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 whatever the next song was. So that was kind of a fun little moment. One little funny moment. So my parents came to support me. They came out to my first live show. And this was actually my first time like screaming in front of my parents. So I just kind of didn't look at them while I was doing the harsh vocals in my song. And they know I listen to metal. They know I do that kind of music. I don't know if they've ever heard me do like those kind of harsh vocals before. But I figured, well, here we go. I didn't want to hold back just because they were there. So I just kind of focused on the technique and kind of looked out, and that was fine. But the other thing was I did a cover for a song. I don't know if you've heard it, but I did a cover for the Disney princess song, Into the Unknown from Frozen 2. And I did that a while back, And it came out pretty cool, but the whole purpose of that was just to make something searchable and to sort of showcase my style of music. And so it came time to performing that, and I said something like, this one goes out to all the Disney princesses out there, and that was supposed to be like a joke. But there were some kids kind of off to the side who were watching the show, and there were a few girls there. And my mom was like, oh, there's a few little princesses right over there. I'm like, I'm on stage, I'm like, this is supposed to be a metal show, and my mom's like, my mom's just such a sweetheart, and so it's just like the most non-metal thing. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do this song live. But I went ahead and did Into the Unknown, and truth be told, like, I think that was a good cover for the time. I still like the way it came out, but now it does feel like Frozen isn't like super current or relevant or anything anymore, and so it feels a little behind to do that cover. I'll probably still perform it a little bit, but once I get a few more songs, I'm not sure I'm going to be pulling that one out as much anymore. But that was just a funny little moment too. But anyway, last few songs, they went fine. It was a good set. And thankfully, I got a lot of good feedback. A lot of people said it was awesome, really enjoyed the show. There was a guy in one of the other bands who was just really encouraging, was just like, dude, the little mess-ups that happened, nobody cared about that. You were awesome. You did a great job. He was very encouraging, like, stick with this. You've got something here. And so I really appreciate what he said. And he hooked me up. He and some of the other groups kind of let me know some local venues to check out. I am trying to play more live shows, so that's sort of my main goal right now. I'm currently in the process of trying to book more shows. That's a little trickier than I thought. I thought it'd just be like, call them up and like, hey, I'd like to play for you. But they already have things booked. I guess for a while I just got to keep knocking until someone's like, oh yeah, we'll book you somewhere, so we'll see. That's the process right now. So the key takeaways afterwards, it all went well. I had some people come up, got a few people signed up on my email list, got some tips and things like that, and then I got to do some skateboarding, so that was a lot of fun. But probably the main takeaways that I got was, one, playing by myself, make sure I've got like my gear strapped down, make sure I can't pull it off. I want to make sure that stuff is secure, so I'm definitely going to get that resolved. Two, make sure I'm drinking room temperature or even warm water, staying hydrated, and just be mindful that the weather might affect my voice. I can't say I necessarily know how to prepare for that. The best I can figure is maybe if you're going to be playing for an outdoor event and you know it, maybe practice singing outside some just to kind of, condition your voice for those conditions. But if I do get that screechiness, sort of the best way to recover is maybe take a break real quick just to kind of swallow, clear your throat or whatever, and then modify the melody if you have to, sing some lower notes. Don't worry if people being like, wait, he's not singing that the way the song goes, because nobody knows my songs anyway, I'm a new artist, so do what you got to do to get through the song without any like cringy mistakes like that. I think those were like the big lessons learned. I did have a friend give me some feedback saying it was a little awkward for me every time I'd have to walk away from the mic to hit play on my laptop. So they suggested if there was some like switch, some kind of foot switch that I could play and pause the songs when I needed to. So I am kind of looking into something like that. But, that was kind of a small thing. It wasn't like a huge detrimental issue. And then other than that, just confirmation that, oh, wow, I can do this. It wasn't just bad lessons learned, just having the experience, just knowing like, okay, this set kind of works and I know what kind of movements look good on stage. And that was a nice thing too. I did have a friend who got some video, which you can check that out. I've posted a video of my live performance. If you haven't seen that yet, definitely check it out. But that was really helpful just to kind of watch and kind of see back like, okay, that worked, that didn't work, I can tweak that, and kind of get a sense of what I need to do. And that's probably the main thing. That's the main thing I want you guys to know. So maybe you're a musician, maybe it's something else, but whatever you're working towards, especially if you're having to do something in front of people, or you're having to kind of experience something for the first time, you can prepare as much as you want. You can be in your bedroom all day long, every day, practicing and honing your craft and getting the mix perfect and all that stuff, but at some point, like, you've just got to do it. You can't prepare for everything. And the biggest teacher and the best teacher, the best thing that's going to shape you and help you progress is experience. And that's really the biggest lesson here, is at some point, just be as ready as you can be. There's always going to be something more to learn, but at some point, you've just got to go out and do it. And you've got to accept that the first time you do it, yeah, there might be some rough patches. There might be some things that don't quite work out, but guess what? You just learn from that, and you do better on the next one. And then you learn from that one and do better on the next one, and just keep going until next thing you know, you are doing it. Like whatever it is you're working towards, in this case, live shows, you are performing, and you know how to put on a show, and you know how to handle certain situations, and you feel more comfortable, you're able to perform better, you're able to improve, and That's really what it's all about. So I hope you found this story interesting. Again, if you haven't seen my live performance, there's a link in the description. Check out that video. If you'd like to see me perform live, but maybe you can't come out to one of my shows, I go live on YouTube every Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So join me for the live streams. And also, leave a comment, because I'm trying to do this viewers comment series. And if you leave a comment asking a question about something music related or just a topic that you'd like me to discuss or talk about, I may select your comment for a future episode. So don't be shy, leave a comment. That's all I've got for you today. Until next time.